Hello, this is Dr. Jayne Morgan with the Medical Association of Atlanta, welcoming you back to our webinar. We have such a great program today as we talk about what's happening with Kratom. We've got Representative Rick Townsend with us today, and we also have Matt Wetherington from the Wetherington Law Firm. We're really not accustomed to having lawyers or attorneys on this program, so this should be quite interesting. Maybe I'll start with Representative Rick Townsend. If you could just give us an introduction as to your background and why you are here today.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. I'm an educator and longtime teacher, coach, principal, superintendent, retired as superintendent. The people down home, I'm from St. Simons, Brunswick area, the Golden Isles. They know me more as a CEO of College Career Academy, which we really engage business community inside the school. And it was a charter school within the school district. So really just fortunate, I have a background. Last year after I retired, it's starting a contract business and got the itch to run. Let's see what happens. And my friends encouraged me and be careful what you wish for. I ran for state house and currently represent District 179 again in Glenn County, and happy to be here and just appreciate you inviting me.
All right. And Matt Wetherington, maybe you could give us a little introduction before we dive in.
Absolutely. My name is Matt Wetherington. I'm an attorney with the Wetherington firm. We're a personal injury firm with offices throughout Georgia. We've got offices all the way down in Albany, Georgia, and all the way up to Rome, Georgia, but we primarily practice out of Atlanta. And we handle a wide variety of civil litigation, but recently we've really taken on the Kratom issue that we're going to talk about here today. Before we jump in, I wanted to add to Representative Townsend's introduction, and that is that if it wasn't clear, this is his first year as a representative, and he has come out absolutely swinging. And to accomplish what he's accomplished in the first year means that he's a person that every single member needs to know and get to know because he's going to be around for a while and do a lot of really good things. And I'm proud to be on this webinar with him.
Well, I am certainly happy to have both of you, as is the Medical Association of Georgia. We are proud and honored. Maybe I can just jump right in with Representative Townsend, and just to level set our audience, just for level setting, what is Kratom? And why are we even talking about it today? Why should we be worried about it?
Well, Dr. Morgan, this time last year, really 4 months ago, I didn't know what Kratom was either. It was a constituent-based issue here in Glenn County. We had 2 young men, one to actually overdose from it. He was addicted to other drugs as well. He did overdose, and he had a large amounts of Kratom in his system when he passed away. And another young man was actually given Kratom when he was in a halfway house to get off opioids. Unfortunately, became addictive and developed psychotic behaviors from the Kratom, and now he's in a mental health institution trying to recover. But it's a plant-based substance that you can't import it, but we're allowed to manufacture it, and it's not a good substance. And right now in Georgia, you cannot. It's plant-based. Comes in many forms. It comes in the most dangerous form is a liquid. It comes in a little bottle. Looks like 5-hour energy, but will have Kratom on it. And it's not labeled. You don't know what you're drinking. You don't know if it's potent, if it's not very potent, if it's adulterated. So it's concerning when right now we're allowing people to put things in the body without them knowing what they're taking. And it's marketed more of as a cure to ease pain and give you a little high if you take a little. If you drink too much, it'll give you a downer kind of attitude. And so that's kind of the market it is now, but you have pills, you have other forms. And really the only safe form that I've really found is a low dose type of form, or it comes in the plant base itself, the leaves. And some people add that to coffee or tea in the morning. That doesn't seem to be too much of an issue. But anything beyond that gets to be a little precarious and dangerous. And Matt and I can tell you many stories that people have been hurt by this just by not knowing what they're putting in their bodies. And right now you can be 18 and buy it at a convenience store.
So I'll add a little bit to that.
Of addictive substance that really can just be bought that's not FDA regulated. That's what it sounds like to me.
So Kratom. So here's an example of Kratom.
Of government or lack of oversight as to how it's being distributed. And anyone, I'm assuming even children, could just walk into the drugstore and buy that?
We have to be 18 now.
I see.
They did change that a few years ago, but right
Okay.
now it's in front of the counter beside the Skittles and the Reese's cups.
I
I'm not
see.
sure if that's really being controlled.
That's really nice to know. So Matt Wetherington, just jump right in. Absolutely.
So Kratom is it is a plant. It comes from Southeast Asia. It's primarily grown in Thailand and Indonesia. And so what they do is they take the leaves, they grind them up, and then they either sell it as a powder or they'll put it into a liquid format. So like here's an example. So you go into a gas station and you'll see this on the shelves, or a smoke shop. And it's a product that, you know, what it'll say like on the label of this one, it just says feel good relief. So this one is marketed as an all natural pain, you know, product. So it says, you know, not they say it's like not addictive, not habit forming, all those kinds of things. And it'll make you feel better. Or you can get something that looks like this and like compare these two. And so this is another version of it that is sold. And these things are sold next to energy drinks or health supplements in stores. And what people may not realize is that this one is infinitely more dangerous, more potent, and more addictive than this one, despite being a fraction of the size. So what happens is they take the plant and they either, depending on how they're going to use it, they either sell it as just like the plant itself in whatever format they can get it, or they will synthesize and extract it to make it more potent and then sell that. And so that's what the smaller one here is. As an example of like an extract that Representative Townsend was talking about, which means that they took the components that make this, you know, either whatever, you know, effects that it has, and then enhances them to, you know, 100, 200 times worse. And so that's the real issue that we're wanting to talk with you and your members about, is that this is a product that no one knows what they're getting, no one knows what they're buying, and it's extremely difficult for the medical community to identify and triage this issue or even know if it has any value whatsoever. So currently there is no accepted medical usage for Kratom, period. FDA has come out and says no benefits for food, no benefits as a drug. But go ahead, Dr. Moore.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much for adding that. Representative Townsend, can you just describe the typical demographic for Kratom users,
It's across the board. And quite a few people take it. They have ailments in their minds. They believe it'll help their backaches or things like that. It's really across the board, anywhere from your 20-year-olds to, you know, 50, 60-year-olds.
So
Mhm.
here's
Some
what they'll do.
teenagers take as well. Matt, you may have a better answer than that.
No,
Okay.
I don't. Your answer is great. The issue that, and this is why this is so difficult and why this is so important for your entire member group. Reality here, though, is that this is not a product that is just for drug-seeking individuals and for dependency. What happens is they market it as an all-natural general health supplement. So they say, like, instead of taking your vitamins every day, take Kratom every day. It'll make you feel better, live longer, be happier. It's marketed to individuals who want an alternative, you know, pain medicine to Advil or Tylenol. So if you have like a medical condition, for example, that, you know, makes it where you shouldn't take one of those, they say Kratom is a good alternative. So you can use it for your daily pain relief. And then they separately market it for people who just want to get high. And so you're going to get pretty much everyone using this. And as I'm certain that this video is going to get at least some sort of response from either the members or just people who are aware this is happening. And it's all walks of life. It's young, healthy adults. I had a client recently who called, her husband was a bodybuilder. Excuse me, not a bodybuilder. He's a fit guy who was working out every day, and he was buying the Kratom at his gym and using it as a pre-workout because in very low doses, it's marketed at least as a slight high, like an Adderall or something like that. And so he was using it at his gym as a pre-workout, and then he died from using it. No drugs in the system, no drug seeking, nothing else. He just died from Kratom overdose. Similarly, I've got another family who their son was taking it, and he thought it was an alternative to 5-Hour Energy. He started taking Kratom. He got addicted to it, and then he eventually died from Kratom overdose. And then similarly, like I've got another client who their her father was using it for pain relief after he was addicted to opioids and was using it to get off opioids, but it just became another addiction. Same thing, got addicted to kratom, started taking it higher doses, and then he eventually died as well. So this is something that affects all categories of clinical environment.
Can you provide an overview of the current regulatory landscape surrounding kratom? Right here specifically in Georgia, but maybe the United States.
Now, that is a great question from Representative Townsend, but I will tell you on the federal level first that there are no regulations on kratom in most states. So what that means is it falls under the FDA's, no medical usage ban. What some people have interpreted that to mean is that you can just sell it, but that's not accurate. But it is in a gray area in those states. But 8 states have currently banned it. It's a Schedule I substance in 8 states. 8 states have explicitly said that it is legal, including Georgia currently. And then there are about 8 more states right this second who are considering whether to ban it or schedule it or, make it legal with certain, requirements. And so Rep. Townsend's probably the best person to tell you about the landscape in Georgia itself.
Yes,
All right.
yeah, Dr. Morgan. Basically, right now you can be 18 years old, buy it over the counter, and there's not a lot of regulations after that. It's you're supposed to have a label, but there's no teeth to the law right now. Where if you violate the law, it's like, okay, so what? So that's why the bill we put in House Bill 181 to first ban it. And we had outside lobbyists that really attacked it. The kratom industry is very strong. It's $1 billion industry, and they really came on and really, fought the bill. So we came to some good compromises to where it's going to be a good bill for Georgians, where hopefully we can regulate it, where it's got to be properly labeled. If not, there are offenses. There are criminal offenses attached to it if the manufacturers and distributors and store owners don't do it the right way. So that's kind of our goal now, is to regulate it, make it a safer environment for Georgia. Right now, I called it during testimony. We had 12 hours of testimony during this process in the House. During testifying, I called it the Wild Wild West. We had Dr. George Lopez, I'm sure you know him, from Georgia Poison Control Center, the director of it. He said, I agree with Representative Townsend, I mean, Wild Wild West, but it's really worse than that. It's more like Russian roulette when you take kratom. So it's one of those where it's not been very regulated now. It is different from all the states. The feds have chosen not to get engaged yet. They're not talking very good about the product kratom, but they still haven't really gotten engaged, except it's a dangerous drug or a non-approved drug.
And so, in this organization, Medical Association of Atlanta, an organization of physicians, what is it that you want us to know about it? When we're seeing patients, things to consider.
So here's the one takeaway that I want your members to take away is this: that people are dying every single day from kratom. People are getting addicted to kratom every single day. The fallout of the kratom epidemic is going to be substantial, and it's headquartered right here in Georgia. Georgia is the epicenter for kratom in addition to California. It is imported to Georgia and California. Most of the major companies operate out of Georgia or California. And as a result, what's going to happen is that we're going to be hit the hardest. And so no one is regularly testing and asking their patients whether they're using kratom or know of its hazards, or at least its lack of usefulness. It's not something that's going to be on any intake form currently of doctors. Maybe some pain management or addiction counseling centers will have it, but it's not part of the standard screening, and it should be. That's number one. Number two is that for individuals who are presenting with symptoms and problems, such as coming in and saying that, they've got like chest depression, or they've got breathing problems or heart problems, like kratom needs to be on that screening as well. Like and it's an alternative diagnosis, because people say, well, I'm just taking vitamins and supplements, and like sometimes they're not just talking about like, a leave or one-a-days. Like kratom is marketing itself as that, and as an innocuous nothing thing, and it's nothing but that. Every single day of my practice, I get another family who calls and says that their loved one has died from kratom. That, like, we've reached the point now, because we're a mid-sized firm, but like we've had to make the decision as a firm to not even take cases where people are seriously hurt by kratom and are only accepting death cases at this point just because the volume is too high. Like we're getting from one lab, we're seeing 100 deaths a month from kratom. And that's only people who have the wherewithal to say, hey, I think kratom might have been a contributing cause to this person's death. And before these people die, a lot of times there's opportunities for intervention. And that's where I want your members to be involved and aware of what this drug is, how people are using it, and why it's so dangerous.
And are there any medical uses for it or medical benefits at all?
There are 0 FDA approved medical uses for this drug. There are infinite falsely claimed uses for this drug. The kratom industry will tell you it does everything from curing cancer to brain injuries to the common cold. The reality is that there may, in fact, be some sort of medical use of kratom, but we're a long way from knowing that and being able to do it in a safe, controlled environment. There's at least 1 and maybe 2 companies have started the FDA drug approval process, but right now it's the Wild West. And so what's happening is that you've got companies who are these fly-by-night companies who, no one knows who they are, where they're coming from. They're getting an unknown potency of this kratom plant, processing it, synthesizing it to make it, to essentially weaponize it so that people get more high from it, and then selling it in our gas stations, smoke shops, and everywhere else you can. And what I suspect the science will bear out eventually is that there are 2 alkaloids. So there's about 40 alkaloids in the kratom plant. There's 2 that are at this point clinically significant. The first is called metrogenine, and the second is 7-OH, so it's 7-hydroxymetrogenine. And the 7-OH is the one that gets people high, and the metrogenine is what gets people low. And so those 2 kind of counteract each other. And if you're familiar with like the 4 Lokis from a couple of years ago, that was the mixture of caffeine and alcohol. It's kind of similar to that, which is why Representative Townsend was saying earlier that in low doses, it will get you high. And then in higher doses, it'll act as it'll get you lower. And so to answer your question directly, currently no medical uses, but that doesn't mean it can't be done in the future.
And so if a patient were to present to the emergency room, is there a specific test that can be done to screen this patient for kratom exposure?
The first answer is yes, but the practical answer is no. There are very few labs in the country right now that are able to test for kratom. And so it's going to have to be a client reported thing at this point. And that's also why it's such a problem in the addiction counseling and halfway houses and things like that, because the current drug screen. So let's say that you're treating a patient who has a history of addiction or drug dependency, and they come in and they say, hey, they're clean on all of their drug screens. But a lot of those individuals will be taking kratom because it's also marketed as a drug that doesn't show up on drug screens that gets you just as high as heroin. And so, yes, it can be done, but most facilities are not equipped to do so.
And again, for our members, are there any known interactions as far as you are aware between kratom and any other medications or substances that a patient might be taking?
The answer is yes. And they're very serious contradictions. Is it called a contraindiction? Is that what you guys call it? But I'll call it a bad mix.
Just an interaction. Are there any interactions?
Yes, there are very serious and very bad interactions. The most common one that we're aware of is with antihistamines. So if you're taking an antihistamine and you were to take like a practical example that we see a lot, someone will be on an antihistamine, they will take this product, and then they will die because of the interaction between the antihistamine and the kratom, because of the way it acts on the opioid receptors. And just that interaction is really bad. Alcohol is another very serious interaction, which obviously alcohol is with everything, but there's a substantial increase in deaths associated with kratom. The other thing to be aware of is that it's very common for kratom to be mixed with fentanyl or other drugs. And so an individual may think that they're getting kratom, but in reality, they may be getting, fentanyl or cocaine or heroin, which what they'll do is they'll mix it up at a very low dosage with the heroin. But if you get the unlucky batch where because it's not homogenized. You just make it the unlucky batch where you've got a little more fentanyl than they intended, and you're going to die from that as well. So it's also common for people to come in with multiple drug uses because this stuff's it's the Wild West. So like you really don't know what's in these things. And that applies to the powders and the liquid forms.
And so it sounds as if there's really no way for consumers to ensure exactly what they are purchasing and whether what they're purchasing is safe or high quality, or even if there is a such thing as safe or high quality with Kratom.
There's not at this time. In Georgia anyway, there's no way a consumer can safely buy something off the shelf and feel good about it.
Mhm. And the most common sources for purchasing this, I know we talked about gas stations and off the shelves. Can you get it online, or Georgia and California are
You
I've heard
can.
all state are big areas where a lot of it is developed. How easy is it to get, and do we get it online? If you're outside the state of Georgia, can you get it?
You can.
Not only is it widely available, but it's much more prevalent than people realize. Like, I will promise every single member that if you ask 5 of your closest friends, one of them is aware of someone who is using Kratom or is using it themselves. Like, that's just the unfortunate reality of this. This is a very slow but fast growing problem, and it's very serious, and it's getting worse by the day.
And so some of the traditional forms that Kratom is in, I've heard you mention a liquid and a tablet. Is there any other forms that it comes in?
Sure. So Kratom, so it comes from a plant. So at the end of the day, they just grind the plant up, and then it can be processed and put into anything that you would normally think of. That ranges from vaping to powders to pills to tablets to liquids to teas. Like, you name it, they can do it. Like, I've seen it in drinks. I've seen it as a cocktail. I've seen it served at kava bars. The possibilities are really endless, and they're trying to find as many ways as they can to put it into other products to avoid the regulatory bans and the import bans specifically.
So it's mostly ingested or inhaled, but not given sort of transdermally, like on your skin. Is it absorbed, or IV? Do you put it into your veins, or it's mostly orally ingested and also inhaled? It's not a rectal suppository. What are all the different ways that you might see this?
I'll be honest with you, that is the first time I have been asked that question, and I don't know directly the answer. All of the cases I'm aware of are through ingestion.
Okay.
But because you're dealing with very complicated metabolites, I actually wouldn't be surprised if there were other means of getting it into the body. And so I will check on that.
Yeah, the current research, you're right, is mainly ingesting. That's all I've seen so far. But you're right. If you can do that, who knows how long, what's going to happen next. So.
Well, and that would be a typical question doctors would have. That's something we would have to address each time we see a patient, right? The route of contact. And what about trends? Maybe Representative Townsend, any patterns or trends that you've really observed for Kratom in the last few years, or maybe things that are shifting or changing that you've seen?
I think just based on the research, I'm new to this as well, but based on the research I've done and people I've talked to, consulted with like Dr. Norris, UGA Pharmacy School, and others, Jeff Breedlove and his organizations. But the people I've talked to and the research I've read, basically it's really across the board. I mean, it's hard to describe. It's just wildly popular, and it's across the ages, and it's some of your people who have the chronic pain like to use it, like I mentioned earlier, as that soothing something in the morning with the tea leaves, with the plant-based leaves, and those are the ones that are trying to use it the correct way. So there's some people out there, and if you go online, there's a lot of support groups, and they're really rabid about their product, and they don't want it banned at all. And the ones
that heroin. No one who uses heroin and likes getting high from it wants to
correct
away.
So that's a good way of saying it. So you understand about the people using it the right way with the low doses, and that's what we're trying to do with this bill. Keep it at a low dose, so when you take it, you know what you're getting. I mean, you can use alcohol. You can buy a case of beer and you drink 12 in one day, or just drink one a day and you'll be okay. So there's a difference between drinking one and drinking 12. Same way as Kratom, if we can regulate it. So we're trying to protect those people who do use a lot of it.
And so obviously we are the Medical Association of Atlanta, representing the city of Atlanta. And how prevalent is Kratom use here in Atlanta? In maybe comparison to the rest of the state, or just however you'd like to address that. But specifically in Atlanta, what do you think about that?
I'm gonna say it's in a majority of your convenience stores. It may not be in your large convenience stores. I don't want to mention any names, but some of the most popular ones, your large ones, you probably won't see it in there, but you'll see it in most of the convenience stores in the Atlanta area. I was driving home to St. Simon's and pulled over in Macon, stopped at a local station, off the expressway, right near Chick-fil-A, and they had it right there at the counter, like I said, beside the Reese's and Skittles. So it's pretty commonplace. You'll see it in vape shops everywhere. It's just a couple blocks away. There's a little cafe just a couple blocks away from the Capitol, and that she mixes it herself and watches the dosage and everything else. So it is highly accessible in the Atlanta area.
Mm-hmm. And have you noticed that there is greater use in the Atlanta area, in the city, as opposed to some of the more rural surrounding counties, or is it maybe more so in the outskirts, outer counties? You know, you live down in Brunswick. What are the comparisons if we're looking at demographics?
I think they're all equally the same. Matt, you may have a better answer than me, but from what I can tell, it's being used equally. If it's a store, the convenience stores owners of the smaller convenience stores will stock it because they make a lot of money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
The vape shops make a lot of money off of it, and they advertise for it. So it's really across the board. It's really per capita based.
Mm. And maybe you could tell us, I don't know, Matt, if you knew, you've got 2 samples there, how much does that cost? How much are those?
So it varies in it, and you're encouraged to, it depends on where you're purchasing. So you can right this second, you can buy it straight from Indonesia or China.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get like a big, like a key, a pound of Kratom powder shipped to your house. But typically what you're going to see is like these extracts, and these extracts range from like $12 to $20 for one single bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can get the less, powerful ones. And those range from like $7 to $9. And then the pills range depending on how many you buy, but you can get 100 pills, for $5 to $20, depending on which entity you go with and kind of how much legitimacy that seller has.
Mm-hmm. And they do look similar to energy drinks in some respects. So let me ask about kind of the native uses of Kratom. What's the native use of Kratom, and how did it even get over here to the Western countries?
So this is one of the like most important parts for people to understand, and that is that the Kratom that is sold in the United States is nowhere close to what is sold and traditionally used in its native habitat. So historically, the story is that for hundreds of years, people have been using this plant as an all-natural pain reliever. And so what they would do is they would pluck the leaves off and put it in their teas, and it would be a pain reliever, and this nice story. But the reality is that every single country where Kratom is natural, it has been banned for at least the last 50 years, if not the last 100 years, for personal consumption. That includes the single largest exporter of Kratom in the world, Indonesia, still currently banned for personal use, only allowed to harvest and export it because they know how dangerous this stuff is. But even worse than that, though, is that once that plant leaves those countries, then they're going to turn around and they're going to synthesize it, extract it, and concentrate it so that it is thousands of times more potent than what anyone would have done 100 years ago just drinking a tea, in its native environment.
That's really good to know. And Representative Townsend, as we start to close this out, really very informative. What is it that you would like our members to know about what you're doing, about what you're hoping to do in the future, and just about Kratom in general?
Really just read more about it, see what Mayo Clinic says, see what the Cleveland Clinic says. You'll see what they say. And then be aware.
It's dangerous and addictive.
That's exactly it. And know what's going on, and be proponents of of change. We need, and that's what really helped the process through the House when we had all these experts come in, professionals who are not making money off Kratom. They see people being hurt by Kratom. They see the bad side of it. So I just want to make sure they're aware of it. If they'd like to help out, just really contact me, contact Matt. I'd love to have them. They know the legislators, talk to the legislators, and really be proactive of developing more testing. That's one of the things Matt mentioned earlier that's concerning is even right now, my county coroner did not know anything about Kratom. He had no clue. We don't test for Kratom. GBI does, Poison Control Center can, but not many places can test for the Kratom drug itself. So I think as we increase our drug screens, it needs to become more prevalent in that industry of testing for it, so we know what's actually happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, would you like to add to that as well?
Well, there's two things I want to add, and that's that Kratom is so widely used, and the medical benefits are so hyped that I am near certain that you're going to have at least one or two members who are going to say that this is all wrong and that Kratom is the best thing since sliced bread and has helped their patients or themselves deal with whatever medical issue. And I want to make it clear that we're not anti-Kratom. What we are is we are anti making things up without a scientific basis. And that in order for Kratom to be used in the medical community and used for medical treatment, it needs to go through the proper channels, and there needs to be a understandable and replicatable, scientifically method-backed process to know what people are using and what they're getting, so that we're not just playing Russian roulette. Kratom may be the greatest thing since sliced bread, but if we're not able to replicate that and do it in a manner that it can be distributed safely, we're just going to keep having people dying day in and day out with no end in sight. That's number one. And number two is that if you do nothing else, just add Kratom to your screening of your patient intake and see for yourself what's happening. Because you're going to be surprised, I suspect, by the prevalence of this drug and the dangers of its interactions with your existing treatment methods.
Well, I appreciate both of you coming on today to put this on our radar such that we can begin to have some information on it, but also begin to understand what it is scientifically, physiologically, and how we best manage our patients and the communities that we serve. And that starts with having that conversation and talking with them about it, and then understanding how to screen and having the knowledge. So I certainly appreciate you coming on today. The Medical Association of Atlanta appreciates having you here to bring this topic really to our level of conscience, so we can begin to even learn more about it and make certain that we are really treating our patients to the absolute top of our licenses, and making certain that we are always upholding our Hippocratic oath and serving the community.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in learning more specific to Georgia, the Wetherington Law Firm YouTube channel, as well as our website, has some resources, has some scientific journals that are organized for you to go through. That's wfirm.com.